My son wants his stepfather to adopt him and is asking me to give up my parental rights. Hi everyone. I'm in a really difficult situation with my son and would be very grateful if you could be kind and thoughtful in your comments on this post. Now about my son. He's 17 and just a week ago he celebrated his birthday. He's supposed to start college this fall. Things between us have been strained ever since I decided to divorce his mother 2 years ago. No matter how hard I tried to fix things, nothing worked. He just kept pushing me away, which really hurt. But I tried to stay close as long as I could. He doesn't answer my texts or calls, and when he does come to my place, he stays in his room the whole time and refuses to talk to me. We only talk at lunch or dinner when he's with me, and even then, he keeps it to the bare minimum. All of this really upset me, and I started to pull back too, and stopped putting my heart and soul into trying to rebuild our relationship, since he clearly didn't want it. That was probably my first mistake. My relationship with my ex-wife is bad as well, and I think that's a big part of why my son hates me now. I'm 44, she's 42. We were married almost 20 years, but things really started to go downhill when I lost my job a few years back. I was suddenly laid off, and it was a huge shock for our family. My wife is a teacher. She doesn't make much, but she managed, and I respect her for that. But she started to resent me, even though I was doing everything I could to find a new job. I think I was unemployed for only 2 months, but I wasn't sitting around. I was actively looking for work with decent pay. She was covering all the expenses, and we were hardly saving anything. The pressure kept building. We started arguing almost every day, and then we stopped talking altogether unless absolutely necessary. The bitterness grew, and eventually she filed for divorce, and I didn't fight it. I think we were both exhausted by then, but maybe she expected me to fight for the marriage at least a little. When I didn't, she hated me even more. I know that's true because during the divorce she called me once and asked if I was really going to go through with it. I said, yes. We split everything 50-50. No disputes, but the relationship was destroyed. She hated me, and I wasn't her fan either, but we still had to work as a team for our son, who took the divorce hard. He didn't want us to split in the first place, and when it happened, he took his mother's side, which hurt a lot. We used to be best friends, and I don't understand why it turned out like this. During the divorce we were already living apart, and of course our son lived with his mother, because at first I was staying with a friend. I think that's when she convinced him that everything was my fault. It's a shame she pulled him into our drama, but she had to get back at me somehow. If the divorce didn't hurt me, she knew this would, and she was right. My son pulling away became the worst thing that could happen, and she did everything to make it so. 3 months ago she married a co-worker. I know the guy. He'd even been to our house a couple of times when my ex held work parties. It was a complete surprise to everyone. I was shocked too. I don't know how long they'd been together, whether she cheated on me, but that doesn't matter now, so I didn't ask. What bothered me was when my son started posting about his new stepdad, going to soccer games together, spending time. Even on my son's birthday, where I wasn't invited, he posted a photo with his mom and stepdad captioned, "Mom and Dad," with a heart, which just killed me. I threw him a separate birthday later, but he showed zero enthusiasm. He and his friends sat in his room with a cake while I sat in the living room, racking my brain about what went wrong. Later that evening, after his friends left, my son said he wanted to talk about something important. He told me he'd thought about it for a long time and decided he wants me to give up my parental rights so his stepfather can adopt him. He said he no longer feels connected to me and prefers his new family, so he doesn't want me in his life anymore. I was stunned. At first, I wanted to argue, but I quickly realized that wouldn't help. If he wants his stepfather, arguing won't keep him. Heartbroken, I said I'd do whatever would make him happy. If that's his choice, so be it. He thanked me and left the next day. The days after that were the hardest of my life. I couldn't bring myself to do anything. I didn't even go to work for a few days. Everything felt pointless. I tried so hard for him, to give him a good life, and he didn't want that life, at least not from me. I was empty, lying in bed for days staring at the ceiling, trying not to burst into tears. I had no idea how to fix it, or if it was even possible. I knew this was my ex-wife's doing, and she was probably thrilled she'd finally destroyed my relationship with our son. I also hated her new husband, not because he married the woman I once loved, but because he was taking my son from me. But there was nothing I could do. Fighting with my son would only make it worse. divorce. So the most I could do was accept it and hope he'd come to his senses someday. And then a miracle happened. My son came back yesterday, but not for the reasons I'd hoped. I thought he'd finally realized I'm his father. Maybe his mom had brainwashed him into believing his stepdad would be a better father. I hoped he'd see how much I love him and change his mind. I was thrilled when he showed up. I thought he'd reconsidered. And he had, but he looked very upset. When I asked what happened, he said he no longer wanted me to give up my rights because his stepfather told him he can't pay for college, so he came to me. There were no other options. His mom couldn't cover everything on her own, so he'd have to stick to the custody agreement if he wanted to attend the college he chose. He was very upset about this, and it really got to me. I didn't treat him badly, quite the opposite. I just couldn't understand why he hated me so much. I hadn't done anything to deserve that kind of hatred from my own son. It angered me that he hated me for no reason, unless his mother had filled his head. She taught him well. I'll give her that. I snapped when he told me this, because I couldn't take that attitude anymore. I give my son everything, and he ignores me. I told him he didn't have to talk to me if he didn't want to, and there are other ways to pay for school, get a job, or take out student loans. If he thinks I'm the worst father, then he should go ahead and have his stepfather adopt him, because I don't want him to suffer anymore. I was being very sarcastic, and he knew it. He looked ashamed and said nothing, and I kept talking. I couldn't stop. It felt like years of pent-up frustration and resentment over being hated by my own son for no reason finally burst. The dam broke, and there was no stopping me. I told him I didn't initiate the divorce. His mother wanted it, and the only reason she resents me so much is because I didn't fight for our marriage. I don't know what tall tales she fed him while he lived with her, but I can assure him the divorce wasn't only my fault, and he can throw out all the false ideas about my marriage to his mother. He's only 17. He knows nothing about me or my life, and if he believes all the nonsense his mother tells him, he's in for a rude awakening. I'm not his enemy and didn't want the divorce, but if she wanted it, I wasn't going to cling to that relationship. I knew he was upset about the divorce, but I tried to make things as good as possible for him. Even when I lived separately, I came over for dinners, but he ignored me because his mother convinced him it was all my fault. So I said I regret letting him stay with his mother during the divorce and trusting her not to turn him against me. Eventually I ran out of steam, and my son was just stunned. He had nothing to say, and I realized my words hit him. He looked both shocked and guilty. He barely said anything, just muttered, "Sorry," and went back to his mother's. A day passed. We didn't talk, and I feel awful about what happened. I should have controlled my emotions, and I'm ashamed I yelled at him, even though he's only 17 and his mother has been manipulating him for 2 years. But I also think it was very cruel of him to say the only reason he came back was for me to pay for college. That's not normal in my opinion, so I was wrong to yell, but I snapped. Well, before we continue, I suggest you write your opinion about this in the comments right now. Personally, I think he did absolutely the right thing. All my life I kept quiet, held in my emotions, never said anything when people treated me badly, and that played a cruel joke on me. Unfortunately, when people see someone's weakness, they don't treat it as a virtue. They just take advantage of it. You don't respond? Okay, so you're an easy target. We can push you around however we like. Sadly, that's what happened to me. That's what happened to my parents, and I think that behavior is completely wrong. Why bottle everything up and say nothing? From the start, you have to speak honestly. Otherwise, it looks like dad is sitting there saying nothing. The son thinks, yeah, dad's at fault. He has nothing to say. While the mother is sitting there brainwashing the son, telling him it's all dad's fault. He left me, he divorced me, and so on. So, as hard as it is, you need to stand up for yourself and sometimes say to someone's face what you think, even if it's unpleasant. Anyway, I'm waiting for your thoughts in the comments. And we continue. Update 1. Hi everyone. I just want to thank you for your support and kind messages. I'm really glad to see so many single fathers respond to my story. Stay strong, guys. I also noticed many of you asked if I ever suspected my ex-wife of cheating. Honestly, no, I didn't. Even during the divorce, there was nothing that made me think she cheated. Maybe there were signs, and I just didn't notice. I don't know. And to be honest, I don't care anymore. I don't think it matters whether she cheated or not. She's already shown what a terrible person she is by trying to use our son to hurt me. I don't need more proof she's awful. As for why I didn't try to take my son to live with me when I stayed with a friend in the first months after the divorce, I did try. I really did, but my son insisted he was more comfortable at home, and since he was in school, I didn't want to create more problems for him or for my friend. I tried to visit from time to time, but the atmosphere there was so hostile because of my ex that I couldn't stay long. Eventually, he started to hate me. I don't know what else I could have done to prevent it. I really tried to shield him from all the divorce drama, but my wife did everything she could to drag him into it and make him hate me. By the time I realized what she was doing, it was too late to fix, and my son had already grown too distant. It's been a few days since I last talked with my son. We've texted, but haven't called or met. I also haven't heard from my ex, so I assume he didn't tell her I yelled at him. Usually he'd complain immediately and do whatever it took for my ex to make a big scene about it. But if he didn't do that and didn't try to paint me as a bad father, then maybe he's finally starting to change. Still, I'm not getting my hopes up too high to avoid disappointment, but I hope he'll call or come over soon so we can talk in detail about our relationship and fix things between us. Update 2. Today my son finally visited me, and the meeting was interesting, to say the least. I won't say our relationship magically healed. Obviously, that's not how it works. Fixing what's been broken so long takes time and hard work. But today was at least the first step, and I'm glad. At first, he was very awkward and uncomfortable, but he did apologize for his behavior. He admitted that when his mother and I divorced, she deliberately told him I destroyed the marriage and didn't even try to fight for it, and he believed her. He didn't know my side, and at 15, he just needed someone to blame. The easiest target was me. Things didn't improve when his mother decided to remarry. My son said posting with his stepdad and pretending they were a happy family was entirely his mother's idea, even though they weren't that close in reality. He only did it to get back at me for the family falling apart. He didn't know that his mother had actually filed for divorce. It was also her idea to ask me to give up my parental rights so his stepfather could officially adopt him. But as it turned out, she didn't even discuss it with him. She just presented it as a done deal. His stepfather was very surprised and said that while he liked spending time with him, he didn't want to adopt him because he didn't feel that kind of bond yet and needed time to make such an important decision. He also mentioned he didn't want to pay for my son's college, which he'd inevitably have to do if he adopted him. Not that he couldn't afford it. He could. He just didn't want to. All of this hit my son hard, which is why he looked so upset that day. But he said my outburst was exactly what he needed because it made him realize a lot. I felt relieved that we were finally talking and that he was finally starting to understand his mother had lied to him and manipulated him. It was an incredible day for us, and we managed to restore at least a bit of our connection. I understand it'll take a long time to get back to normal, but it's a good start. I told him that regardless of the past, I'm ready to forgive him and start over. He also promised to talk to his mother about what she'd been telling him all these years and even suggested therapy together to rebuild our relationship in a healthier, more effective way. I'm glad it's finally happening, and even happier that my ex will finally face consequences. She's a horrible person and doesn't deserve to be a mother. I know that sounds harsh, but I'm saying what I think. If she's willing to use her own son just to hurt me, she's clearly not a good mother. I think I'll file for full custody soon. Of course, I need to discuss it with my son first, because who knows, despite everything, he might still want to stay with her. I wouldn't force him if that's what he wants, though it would hurt a lot. I'll talk to him, find out what he wants, and then talk to a lawyer. I sincerely hope he understands what a disgusting and selfish woman his mother really is and decides to stay with me. I truly wish her the worst. For years she manipulated and gaslit our son just to make me miserable. I can't even imagine how heartless you have to be to think of that, let alone actually do it. She's insane and absolutely doesn't deserve a son like him. I really don't understand how I lived with her for so many years and how she turned from a sweet, caring wife into a selfish monster just because I lost my job. But at least now both my son and I know who she really is, and she'll finally get what she deserves. Update 3. My son just texted me that he wants to come over and needs me to pick him up from his mother's house. He said he has a lot of stuff, so he can't just take the bus like he usually does. I'm in shock because I'm almost sure he's decided to move in with me. It happened so suddenly, but I'm already standing outside my ex's house waiting for him to come out. He asked me to wait a few minutes. I can hear people arguing inside, but I can't make out who's yelling at whom or what they're saying. I desperately want to go in and take my son home, but I don't want to enter without permission because I'm sure my ex will do everything she can to cause trouble for me. So I'm just waiting for my son outside. Update 4. So, I finally got home after a very long evening. I'm exhausted, but I feel like I need to tell you what happened just to process it somehow. As I said, I was waiting for my son outside my ex's house because he asked me to pick him up. A few minutes after I posted my update, he finally came out. Even then, I could still hear shouting inside. My son looked very angry as he walked to the car with his bag. Soon I saw my ex run after him. She was furious too, and as soon as she saw me in the car, she came straight up and started yelling right into the window. It was pretty scary, but I told her if she didn't step back, I'd call the police. She did step back a bit, but she didn't leave. While I helped my son load his things into the car, she kept screaming at me because, in her opinion, I'd turned our son against her, and she called me every name in the book. I didn't care. I knew the truth, and so did my son. That was all that mattered. She kept shouting even as we were driving away. And suddenly, when we were a few yards from her house, she threw a rock at the car and shattered my tail light. I pulled over a little farther down and immediately called the police to report what happened. My son and I were both in shock, and I couldn't believe she was behaving like that just because she'd been exposed. I filed a police report and got home a few hours ago. My son had a complete breakdown, and I can see he's really struggling. So tomorrow I'm taking him to a therapist first thing. I've also decided to file for full custody tomorrow, as well as for a restraining order, because what happened today is simply unacceptable. I still hope her current husband realizes what kind of crazy person he's living with and runs while he still has a chance. I hope I can get full custody of my son and a restraining order against my ex as soon as possible. Well, that's it. As we can see, it turned out to be even more complicated and worse than we thought. And yet the ending for the author, in my opinion, is wonderful because he wanted to get closer to his son, but to the point of possibly getting full custody, he clearly didn't expect that. Of course, we still don't know whether he got full custody or not, but I think he has every chance. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Share your opinion about the story in the comment. Check out our previous videos, which you'll see right here. Be sure to subscribe to our channel if you somehow haven't yet, and good luck.